Hello and welcome. We are live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Bhutan and Portugal also join others in backing a permanent seat for India in the United Nations Security Council, cites leadership in Global South. Multiple Israeli airstrikes rock Beirut, claims to target several Hezbollah commanders and weapons unit. Hezbollah denies claims. Race to White House gains momentum, taking a pitch on immigration and border issues. Kamala Harris visits southern border as Trump campaigns in Michigan after meeting Zelensky. Storm Helene kills at least 33 people across southeastern US, one of the biggest storms to ever hit the Gulf Coast, leading into a devastating flooding. And in cricket, India eye quick wickets as Bangladesh look to rebuild on day 2 of Kanpur Test, reinforced early stumps on day 1. So the 79th session of UN General Assembly is witnessing more and more countries coming forward to support India's decade-long push for a permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron have joined the US in backing India's bid, citing the urgent need for UN reform. Here's more.
India's quest for a permanent seat on the UN Security Council gains momentum. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has reaffirmed Britain's support for a permanent seat for India at the UN Security Council. Addressing the 79th session of the UN General Assembly, Starmer said the Security Council has to change to become a more representative body, willing to act, not paralyzed by politics.
We want to see permanent African representation on the Council. Brazil, India, Japan and Germany as permanent members, and more seats for elected members as well.
Earlier, French President Emmanuel Macron has strongly backed India's bid for a permanent seat on the UNSC, emphasizing the need for reforms to make the UN more effective and representative. During his address at the 79th United Nations General Assembly, Macron advocated for expanding the Security Council to include Germany, Japan, India, Brazil and 2 African nations as permanent members. Last week, the United States also voiced support for India to have a permanent seat at the UNSC. During the recently held Summit of the Future at the United Nations in New York, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi called for urgent reform of the institutions of global governance, including the UN Security Council.
Success of humanity lies in our collective strength, not in the battlefield. Our वैश्विक शांति एवं विकास के लिए ग्लोबल संस्थाओं में रिफॉर्म्स आवश्यक है. रिफॉर्म इज द की टू रिलेवेंस.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar also echoed the same sentiment of reforming the United Nations and giving representation to Asia, Africa and Latin America as well as Global South in the UNSC.
Expansion and proper representation in the permanent category is a particular imperative. Asia, Africa and Latin America, the Global South, cannot continue to be shortchanged. They must be given their legitimate voice. Real change needs to happen and happen fast.
India has long made the case for joining the United Nations Security Council as a permanent member, emphasizing its significant contributions to global peacekeeping and its growing influence on the world stage. The country argues that the current 15-nation council, established in 1945, is outdated and doesn't accurately reflect today's geopolitical landscape. India last sat at the UN high table as a non-permanent member in 2021-22. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres recently sounded the alarm at the Summit of the Future, emphasizing that the United Nations Security Council risks losing credibility unless its outdated model is reformed. Currently, the UN Security Council consists of 5 permanent members and 10 non-permanent members elected for 2-year terms by the General Assembly. The permanent members are Russia, the United Kingdom, China, France and the United States, all of whom have veto power over substantive resolutions. Abhishek Bose for DD India.
And after support from US, UK and France, India's UNSC bid now gets endorsement from Bhutan and Portugal. Speaking at the United Nations General Assembly, Bhutan Prime Minister Tshering Tobgay said that India, with its significant economic growth and leadership in the global south, deserves a permanent seat at the Security Council.
Bhutan has long advocated for the reform of the Security Council to make it more representative and effective. For this, India, with its significant economic growth and population and leadership of the global south, deserves a permanent seat at the Security Council.
Bhutan Prime Minister also thanked India for being a development partner.
Last December, 52 years after joining the United Nations, Bhutan graduated from the LDC category. To achieve this achievement did not come easily. It was a journey marked by hard work, perseverance, and sacrifice. Most importantly, I would like to reserve our deepest thanks to India, our closest friend and neighbor. They have been with us from the very beginning of our development journey and have remained steadfast in their support and friendship.
And at the UNGA address, Portugal PM Luís Montenegro backed India's claim for being a permanent member of the UNSC.
On another front, we are in favor of reforming the United Nations Security Council to make it more representative, agile and functional. Its composition is outdated, and the absence of representatives from some regions hampers its functioning. Portugal supports the African Common Position and the aspirations of Brazil and India to become permanent members.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Ajay Shankar will deliver a speech in 79th United Nations General Assembly on Saturday. Meanwhile, Dr. Jaishankar met the Foreign Minister of Singapore, Vivian Balakrishnan, on the sidelines of the UNGA. Dr. Jaishankar also met the Foreign Minister of Uzbekistan, Bakhtiyor Saidov. He appreciated the progress of bilateral ties between both the countries. On the sidelines of the UNGA, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar met Rasid Beredov, the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Turkmenistan. Jaishankar extended greetings on Turkmenistan's National Day and discussed further expansion of India-Turkmenistan ties. Further, Dr. Jaishankar met Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the Deputy Prime Minister of the United Arab Emirates and Minister of Foreign Affairs. Dr. Jaishankar met Lars Løkke Rasmussen, the Foreign Minister of Denmark. Both leaders appreciated the positive directions of the relationship of both countries and shared perspective on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. India's External Affairs Minister also met Casper Veldkamp, the Foreign Minister of the Netherlands, and discussed strategic issues of the day. The Indian leader also met Timko Mukunske, the foreign minister of North Macedonia, at the 79th UNGA meeting. Both the leaders discussed investment, connectivity and cooperation with the region. And India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar chaired the BIMSTEC informal foreign ministers meeting in New York. In the meeting, India took stock of close cooperation in health, food security, trade, investment, economy and energy. The meeting also explored opportunities for capacity building, skill development and improving people-to-people ties. Dr. Jaishankar reaffirmed India's commitment for wider engagement with BIMSTEC in line with Neighbourhood First, Vision Sagar and Act East policy. Calling India's rise in Global Innovation Index 2024 to 39th position a remarkable feat, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi in a post on X wrote, and I quote him, "A remarkable feat. Our government is committed to ensuring a vibrant innovation ecosystem which can transform the lives of the youth." India has improved its ranking from 81 in 2015 to 39 in 2024 among 133 global economies. Last year, it figured at 40th position. India, however, ranks first among 10 economies in Central and South and Southern Asia region and also first among the 38 lower middle income economies. India's innovation landscape continues to flourish, powered by our innovators and entrepreneurs. And just days after experiencing the wettest September day since 2020, western state of India, Mumbai, is set to experience isolated heavy to very heavy rainfall on September 28th. The India Met Department issued an orange alert on Friday predicting heavy rainfall in Maharashtra, Gujarat, Goa, Uttarakhand, East Uttar Pradesh, Bihar and West Bengal, predicting very heavy rainfall. According to the Weather Department, Delhi is also likely to witness light rainfall throughout the day. And according to the IMD, scattered to fairly widespread light to moderate rainfall is expected in South India this week. Also, the IMD in its bulletin predicted heavy to very heavy rainfall in sub-Himalayan West Bengal and Sikkim. Alright, still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Shigeru Ishiba is set to replace Fumio Kishida as the next Prime Minister of Japan. Tropical storm John downgraded but batters cities with severe flooding and landslides. A new milestone for Indian spinner Ravichandran Ashwin.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Some more stories. A series of new blasts hit Beirut's southern suburbs in the early hours of Saturday, sending huge clouds of smoke soaring above the densely populated area. The Israeli army claimed that its airstrikes killed Muhammad Ali Ismail, the commander of Hezbollah's missile unit in southern Lebanon, and his deputy as well as other senior officials. The strikes were followed by a second bombing hours later, which Israel's military said targeted Hezbollah weapons stored in buildings in the area. The Israeli army said that it would attack all strategic locations of Hezbollah, asked residents to evacuate.
The extensive aerial operation to degrade Hezbollah's terrorist infrastructure and capabilities. We are preparing to conduct strikes on strategic assets that Hezbollah has hidden underground beneath 3 buildings in the heart of the Dakhia in Beirut. Over the years, Hezbollah has developed an anti-ship missile arsenal supplied by Iran. Hezbollah has both threatened and, in the past, carried out attacks on maritime global shipping route.
Meanwhile, Hezbollah denied on Saturday that any weapons or arms depots are located in buildings that were hit in an Israeli strike on Beirut suburbs, the Lebanese armed group's media office said in a statement. The United States claimed that they had no advance warning of an Israeli strike in Beirut. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said he did not have any warning of strikes in Beirut that targeted Hezbollah's central headquarters, as he was on a call with the Israeli counterpart while the strike was underway. Austin also said he would be speaking with Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant again soon for an update.
The United States was not involved in Israel's operation. We had no advance warning. My call with Minister Gallant took place while the operation was actually already underway. What I will say is that you've heard me say a number of times that an all-out war should be avoided. Diplomacy continues to be the best way forward, and it's the fastest way to let displaced Israeli and Lebanese citizens return to their homes on both sides of the border.
And UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has warned that Lebanon must not be allowed to become another Gaza, stressing that a full-scale war must be avoided at all cost. Speaking at a UN Security Council meeting on the West Asia, Guterres urgently called for an immediate ceasefire.
Israeli Defense Forces struck civilian buildings in Beirut, saying they had targeted Hezbollah's main headquarters located under Nice. War in Lebanon could lead to further escalation involving outside powers. I fully support the proposal for a temporary ceasefire, allowing for the delivery of humanitarian relief and paving the way for the resumption of serious negotiations for a durable peace across the blue line. We need this ceasefire now. We cannot afford endless negotiations as we have on Gaza. We must avoid a regional war at all costs. Gaza remains the epicenter of the violence, and Gaza is key to ending it.
And U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that the choices all parties in the West Asia in the coming days will determine which path the region takes and have profound consequences for years to come. On the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly, Antony Blinken said Washington has made clear it believes the way forward is through diplomacy, not conflict.
The events of the past week and the past few hours underscore what a precarious moment this is for the Middle East and for the world. The United States has made clear, along with the G7, the European Union, partners in the Gulf, so many other regions, that we believe the way forward is through diplomacy, not conflict.
And on the other hand, Blinken said he had a candid and substantive meeting with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and underscored strong U.S. concerns about China's support for Russia defense industrial base. Blinken said he raised China's dangerous and destabilizing actions in the South China Sea and discussed improving communication between the U.S. and Chinese militaries.
I also underscored our strong concern with China's support for Russia's defense industrial base, which fuels Russia's war machine and perpetuates a war that China purports to want to see ended. Just now, I concluded a candid and substantive meeting with China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi. We discussed steps to implement the commitments that our leaders made at Woodside last year, like working to disrupt the flow of synthetic drugs and precursor chemicals into the United States, improving communications between our militaries, discussing the risks of artificial intelligence.
As the U.S. presidential election nears, Vice President and Democratic candidate Kamala Harris visited U.S. border with Mexico. Harris arrived in Arizona, a border town of less than 70,000 people, on Friday. She walked alongside a stretch of border wall built during Obama's presidency to stop illegal immigration. In her first visit to the international boundary since becoming the Democratic presidential nominee, Harris talked with local border patrol leaders. Later, she will also call for further tightening asylum restrictions. Immigration and border security are top issues in Arizona, the only battleground state that borders Mexico. Some 7 million migrants have been arrested illegally crossing the border under Harris and Biden rule, a record high number that has fueled criticism from Trump. However, border crossings have dropped sharply since Biden announced the asylum ban earlier this year. And former U.S. President Donald Trump met his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky on Friday. While his meeting, Trump, in a statement, said he has a very good relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Adding further, he also vowed to end Ukraine conflict quickly as Zelensky discussed his victory plan for Ukraine. Trump's meeting with Zelensky comes after he criticized the Ukrainian leader on the campaign trail.
Appreciated that. So we have a very good relationship. And I also have a very good relationship, as you know, with President Putin. And I think if we win, I think we're going to get it resolved very quickly. I really think we're going to get it resolved.
I hope we have more good relations.
We're going to have, oh, I see. Yeah, but you know, it takes two to tango, you know, and we will, we're going to have a good meeting.
And after his meeting with Zelensky, Trump continued his election campaign in Michigan. Addressing a rally, he said that Tesla CEO Elon Musk would serve as his administration's cost cutter if the Republican nominee wins back the White House. And in one of the most unprecedented elections, former Defense Minister of Japan Shigeru Shiba is set to replace Fumio Kishida as the next Prime Minister of the country. Japan's newly elected Prime Minister vowed to take necessary measures to boost consumption and wages for betterment of economy. And Elon Musk will have to pay an additional $1.9 million to reinstate social media platform X in Brazil. Brazil's Supreme Court said on Friday that social platform X still needs to pay just over $5 million in pending fines, including a new one, before it will be allowed to resume its service in the country, according to a court document. Earlier this week, the Elon Musk-owned U.S. firm told the court it had complied with orders to stop the spread of misinformation and asked it to lift a ban on the platform. X has been suspended since late August in Brazil, one of its largest and most coveted markets, after Judge Morales ruled it had failed to comply with orders related to restricting hate speech and naming a local legal representative. And the death toll from Storm Helene rose to at least 33 people across the southeastern United States. Helene was one of the biggest storms to ever hit the Gulf Coast, leading into a life-threatening flooding. Hurricane caused torrential flooding across southeastern United States, hampering lives of millions. Emergency responders launched massive operations to rescue people inundated in flood. Helene made landfall as a Category 4 hurricane, which later weakened to a tropical storm and eventually a tropical depression. The storm has continued to wreak havoc across multiple states, knocking out power for millions of customers. National Hurricane Center has warned of flash floods in Georgia's largest city, Atlanta, as well as in South Carolina, North Carolina and Tennessee. Now, Tropical Storm John was downgraded to a tropical depression over Mexico's Pacific coast on Friday. However, it still battered the cities in its path with severe flooding and landslides after 4 days of landfall. On Monday night, John struck the southwestern coast of Mexico as a powerful Category 3 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson scale. Its heavy rains and powerful winds left 5 people dead and dozens of trees and poles down. After dissipating, its remnants moved into the Pacific Ocean, where it strengthened again on Wednesday to resume its path towards land, although moving slightly further to the northwest. In the state of Guerrero alone, the storm has left 950 millimeters of rain. Now the movement of storm has reduced. John was last reported moving northwest, and its remnants are expected to dissipate by the weekend. And the India cricket team will eye quick wickets while Bangladesh will look to rebuild on day 2 of the Kanpur Test. Earlier on day 1, the match was called off in just 35 overs after rain and bad light played spoil spot. Indian pacer Akashdeep Singh picked up early wickets of opener Zakir Hassan and Shadman Islam, while captain Najmul Hussain Shanto was dismissed by R. Ashwin. Bangladesh ended the day on 107 for 3 with Mominul Haq top scoring with 40. Shadman departed after a brilliant DRS call by India, but they ended up wasting 2 more reviews soon after unsuccessful challenges. Now, India's star spinner Ravichandran Ashwin achieved an elite feat on Friday as he became the first Indian to pick the most wickets in Asia in Test matches. Ashwin achieved the milestone on day 1 of the second Test match against Bangladesh in Kanpur when he removed Najmul Hussain Shanto for 31 runs from 57 balls in the 29th over. In Asia, Ashwin bagged 420 wickets in Test and holds the top place on the list, while Anil Kumble stands in second place with 419 wickets in Asia. Ashwin made his Test debut in 2011 against West Indies. Following that, the 38-year-old appeared in 101 Test matches and 191 innings, where he picked up 522 wickets so far. Alright, that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.